TIL the Myers Briggs has no scientific basis whatsoever. It can get downvoted, but from personal experience, it is one of the best ways I've found to accurately categorize people. Sure, not every or maybe even not most people who get an ESTP result will exactly fit the ESTP description, but in a room of 100 people, they will be the most similar to the people in the ESTP group. And comparing it to horoscopes is just dumb. Horoscopes attempt to describe a person's personality from the Earth's orbit at time of birth, while MT does so from the way they answer a questionnaire, whose answers are literally based on your personality. No scientific basis whatsoever seems a bit dramatic. I mean, observing that people tend towards certain preferences in how they take in information, how they make decisions, and how they do those in the context of working with others and then trying to extrapolate from that certain tendencies isn't bananas. It's far from a dead-on predictor, it needs ample salt of course, but it's not like it was just thrown together without any rationale tied to empirical data, or an attempt to turn that into a testable hypothesis, whatsoever. Hot take. Myers-Briggs is a great tool to figure out which things and ways you tend to think, feel, and act. Humans are way more complex than the simple test can allow, but I'd be damned if it isn't helpful. Many people, depending on how they feel, or gain experience in life, tend to get different answers because some things you gain more insight in, maybe you thought differently because you were different 10 days ago. Use it and gain insight, and then move on. Take what you like, change what you don't. I think the categories are all correct. People do think differently and feel differently, sense and perceive differently. People are introverted and extroverted. People do favor certain characteristics. The mistakes come when people pretend they are only what their 4 letters say they are and eschew any possibility of displaying traits of other letters. People are complex and moods and situations have as much impact on what traits reveal themselves and when why as someone's natural predisposition does. To be fair, that's not entirely true. There are people that are actively working on trying to do just that using brain scans and neurological studies. They do find some significant correlations between Myers-Briggs types and brain activity. They're definitely imprecise and, more than anything, suffer from it being a self-assessment. I wouldn't use them for much, but it does have people trying to quantify and define this stuff. I once got in an argument over this with a class and a professor. The class swore the results of this test as their new identity as human. The professor was so excited for them. I was outspoken in how I thought it was an easy test to take and get the results you want. I mean, we were freshmen in college and to me the questions were so obvious of what they going to lead to. It ended with basically me teacher smart. You student dumb so you don't know what you're talking about. It's modern astrology. It's so generic anyone could see themselves fitting into the descriptions. You know, like astrology. There's another very similar thing going around businesses too, can't remember what it's called darn. But a company I worked for brought in a guy to conduct the tests for the new one and I recognized this type of BS again immediately. I put in as little effort as possible into the process and didn't even look at the results. I just got back to work. It was also created by extremely bizarre fascists. This is also true of the BMI, which is still nearly universally used by insurance companies and doctors to deny fat people surgery, contributing to the largely specious statistical illusion that fat people have extreme mortality risks when in reality the subtler effect of being fat is expounded exponentially by medical discrimination in the available statistics. The more you know. This makes a lot of sense. When I was younger, I felt like my personality varied widely from situation to situation, so I frequently took the test. Each time I got different results, but I did get some repeats, and while all the results seemed to be designed to make the reader happy with the outcome, I only most identified with the result I got most often. Though that's probably just another few layers of bias on my part. Social psychologist here. Yeah, this thing is bad. Apart from the methodology being garbage and it being ultra unreliable, a lot of personality psychologists really hate it because it creates boxes groups for people on traits that are on a spectrum. You have people thinking INFJ means something specific when it's really you rate higher or lower on certain personality traits than other people. It wasn't really supposed to it. It was a corporate management tool that basically looked at people and roughly categorized them along a few axes for the sake of condensing hundreds or thousands of employees' working communication styles into an easy-to-handle matrix. That's it. Unfortunately, the general public treated it like astrology, which metastasized it into the mess it is today. Yeah, it's true that Myers-Briggs has no validity and has been known for a long time. The one personality trait it does seem to capture is introversion-extroversion. Proper personality tests could set you back around $1,600 reduce, and I think the most legit ones claim to capture 56 of an individual's personality traits. It's not rock solid but can definitely give you pointers. Though discounted now, this was quite popular among those at my workplace during the 80s through to 2010s. Many supervisors used it as a tool to figure out people's preferences, and some felt it was helpful in helping understand different personalities in the workgroup. That said, I knew some that found it not useful at all, and laughed it off. I think the fairest thing to say about MBTI is that it gives the users a terminology needed to start down a path of personal discovery. It's a useful tool for self-assessment, self-improvement within an individual. As an actual assessment tool that tries to compare between individuals, it has no empirical validity whatsoever, as much as it isn't rigorous, but I know it works as a first approximation. The reason I know is because my graduate lab had 100 INTP or INTJ and we all shared the same personality archetype, X200B. So while it could be improved on with data and rigor, I strongly believe it does grab some approximation about your personality. I've never bought into the Myers Briggs. Every human who has ever lived is incredibly unique. Even people with similar personalities can be wildly different in many ways. Lifestyle choices and hard or good times can affect personality and cause it to change over the course of weeks, months, or years. Just never made sense to me, yet people and companies still use it. I remember arguing with someone how its lack of science backing or any real qualifying information mean it shouldn't be used, yet this person insisted it had merit because they preferred it and that's why they will continue to use it. The cognitive dissonance of some people is astounding. Personality and aptitude tests have always been a crock of shit because all of them basically just outright ask the person taking the test what it is that they'd want to like to do, and then pompously recycle the answer claiming that it was a test that determined the person's own answers. Still, pretentious Redditors can't stand the idea of personality tests. Do I think that employers should be using this to determine who should and should not be hired? Absolutely not. But acting like random people taking the test for fun are an active detriment to society is just ridiculous. Extremely popular in Korea among regular people. It's a nice icebreaker conversation starter. Took over blood type personality pseudoscience. Y'all have horoscope girls, we have MBTI girls, and yeah, there are people who take it way too seriously. The owner of a company I worked for years ago had a boner for this kind of personality test stuff. Made the whole company take the test at a mandatory weekend company meeting once. It was such bullshit. Man, I hated that place. It's even worse than that. You could rewrite the same Myers-Briggs test and get entirely different results each time. Or more, you can easily influence your results either deliberately, or through an unconscious bias. Psychology isn't a hard science, so not sure which scientific basis it should be based on, but pretty sure even though, let's say therapy, has no scientific basis either. Most can agree it isn't mumbo-jumbo. It's not that Myers-Briggs has no scientific basis because it does. It is great at predicting personality traits. It is the use of it for fitting people into cultures and job functions that has no basis. Today, it's been replaced in 2 companies I've worked at by Gallup's Clifton Strengths. Refused to take it both times. That caused HR involvement at one place, and my reaction at the other place. A job I was applying for had me take one of those personality tests. I'll never do that again. If they ask me to do it, the job application process is over. Thanks and best wishes on your search. Most people have known that forever. The only people who put any stock into it whatsoever were the people eager to tell you a meaningless 4-letter dork category they put themselves into. My family never really did much with Myers-Briggs, but my sister is into alternative treatment stuff and got my whole family into Enneagrams. It's so annoying listening to them go on about it. Business astrology with a heavy MLM vibe, which is why it is still pushed despite being based on discredited science that was poorly implemented. Washington Post has a great story on this. I've wasted 3 days of my life to date on Myers-Briggs workshops. 3 different results. All I took from it are that some people are more comfortable winging it and others like lists. While we're at it, the same is true of love languages. Just a priest making stuff up with some extremely suspect anecdotes that were later retracted in future iterations. The scientifically accepted model of personality is the 5-factor model, and the Myers-Briggs does correlate with some of the 5 factors, so it's not terribly bad like astrology. It's just a way of categorizing people, and works fine in that sense. But there's nothing inherent within the human brain that links to it. If that's what you mean. The thing I hate the most about these tests is that shitty people use our type as a reason to complain about ways people talk or interact with them. It's complete bullshit. It's about the same as saying I'm a good manager because I'm a Libra and Libras have good social skills. All these personality and job type tests are complete BS. The only good they do is for the consultants who make money off of them. It's always just been horoscopes for people who like horoscopes, but still want to make fun of other people for liking horoscopes. It's almost like if you have 16 different personality archetypes, everybody is bound to be able to relate to at least one of them. All of those silly ass tests are the epitome of people being delighted thinking they found some astrology in their psychology. The people who take the Myers Briggs seriously are introverted incels who fake their autism as an excuse to be shitty people. This is why I put the results of my with Harry Potter character "Are you?" quiz in all of my job applications instead. I'm just waiting for the day when consultants realize peak personality testing is based off Nicolas Cage characters. Horseshit in real life, brilliant for game designers and writers to craft personalities, especially for NPCs. So, a scam used by thousands of corporations to enact racism and discrimination? Who would have thunk it? Paraphrasing Arthur C. Clarke. I don't believe in personality tests. I'm an INTJ and we're skeptical. TIL the Myers Briggs has no scientific basis whatsoever. That's just what an INTJ would say. It is about as useful as a handwriting personality test, which some places also still use. It's astrology but without the planets. And used just as often to justify bad behavior.